23 from chapter 12 of Canto 4. Sunandananda uchate Bho rajan subhadram te vacham no vahita shunu yah pancha varsas tapasa bhavan devam atripata pat Nanda uchate Bho rajan suhadram te vacham no vahita shunu yah pancha varshas tapasa Bhavan Devam Atripad Sunandananda Uchate Bhogo Rajan Subhadram Te Vacham No Vahitam Shunu Yah Pancha Varsha Tapasa Bhavan Devam Tripat. Anyone else likes to recite this shloka, please?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandot Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Shunanda Nandava Uchutaha Bhavo Rajan Sundaram Te Bacham no Vaita Sunu Yo Pancha Varshas Tapasha Bhavan Devam Ati Triktat. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I am also trying.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Shunandananda Uchotu Bho Rajan Subhadram Te Bacham no Vohita Srinu Yo Pancha Varshas Tapasha Bhavan Devam Ati Tripat. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Shunandananda Uchatuhu Bhogo Rajan Subhadram Te Vacham no Vahita Srinu Yah Panchavarshastapasha Bhavan Devan Ati Tripat. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
I'll try Hare Krishna Mataji. Sunandanandava uchatu Bhobo Rajan Subhadramte Vacham no avitita shanu Yat pancha varsha tapasa Bhavan Devam Atitrapat. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Anyone else wants to try? Let's start with word-to-word translation. Sunandananda Uchate. Sunanda Ananda said, Bhogo Rajan, O dear king, Subhadram, good fortune, Te, on to you, Vacham, words, Na, are, Avahita, attentively, Shrunu, hear, Yah, who, Panchavarsha, 5 years old, Tapasa, by austerity, Bhavan, you, Devam, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Atripat, greatly satisfied. Let's look at the translation and the purport. Next. Nanda and Sunanda, the two confidential associates of Lord Vishnu, said, Dear King, let there be all good fortune unto you. Please attentively hear what we shall say. When you were only 5 years old, you underwent severe austerities, and you thereby greatly satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Srila Prabhupada has said in purport that what was possible for Dhruv Maharaj is possible for anyone. Any 5-year-old child can be trained, and within a very short time, his life will become successful by realization of Krishna consciousness. Unfortunately, this training is lacking all over the world. It is necessary for the leaders of the Krishna consciousness movement to start educational institutions in different parts of the world to train children, starting at the age of 5 years. Thus, such children will not become hippies or spoiled children of society. Rather, they can all become devotees of the Lord. The face of the world will then change automatically. Lots of instruction Prabhupada is given in his purport. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana Timandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Sajivam Tadavaitam Swavadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Vedvyas Priya Swami Iti Namane Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashadhade Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. We saw in the verse translation and as well as in the purport about how Dhruv Maharaj pleased Lord at the age of 5. And in previous verses of this chapter, you've seen that after pleasing, he ruled the Bhumandala for 36,000 years. And then he decided that, oh, I need to take renunciation now. He desired to take renunciation because he thought that he wants to diminish his pious results and destroy his sinful activities or reactions, his sinful reactions by austerities. And he was thinking all this all by his humility because he was a pure devotee. So he didn't have any pious results and he didn't have any sinful reactions. So because when after the tapasya, he saw the Lord, at that time, Lord gave him love of Godhead. So when he gained that perfection, how can we tell that? So we'll see that in this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 4.9.19, with translation says, this is when Supreme Personality says, after Dhruva Maharaj has given his prayers after seeing the Lord and had his darshan. First thing, when Dhruva Maharaj saw the Lord, he couldn't speak. He was speechless. And that's why you can see in the photo here or the painting that Lord is touching Dhruva Maharaj with the conch shell. And that's where he was enlightened with all the Vedas, all the knowledge. And then he spoke the prayers to the Lord. And after that, after hearing him, Lord thus spoke that, my dear Dhruva, son of the king, you have executed pious vows, and I also know the desire within your heart. Although your desire is very ambitious and very difficult to fulfill, I shall favor you with its fulfillment. All good fortune unto you. Why Lord is saying that his desire is very ambitious and very difficult? Because he started the tapasya to get a huge kingdom. And for Lord, it shouldn't be very difficult to give any material desire. But what Lord is referring here is the love of Godhead. Because after seeing the Lord, after getting through the purification process, Dhruva Maharaj was purified and he was feeling the love for God. He just wanted to serve God and he didn't want anything. He was regretting for his material desire. He was worried that this may come in as an impediment to my path of bhakti. So that's why Lord assured him that he will be given love of Godhead. And that's why he said it's very difficult, because giving love of Godhead is not a very easy, it's not very easily obtained. And Lord doesn't give that very easily. That's why it's very difficult. And Prabhupada further explains that in a very nice point for that verse, that the Lord assured Dhruva Maharaj that Dhruva would not be bereft of the Lord's love. He encouraged Dhruva not to be worried that he childishly had material desire, and at the same time had the pure aspiration to be a great devotee. So generally, and this is the very good point, that generally the Lord does not award pure devotee material opulence, even though he may desire it. But Dhruva Maharaj's case was different. The Lord knew that he was such a great devotee that in spite of having material opulence, he would never be deviated from love of God. So this example illustrates that a highly qualified devotee can have the facility of material enjoyment and at the same time execute love of God. So this was a special case for Dhruva Maharaj. That's what Srila Prabhupada has explained. So that's how we can say that he reached the level of prema, stage of prema bhakti at the age of 5 by his devotion and Lord's mercy. And so he, after ruling for so many years, out of humility, he thought he wants to go and do some tapasya so he can purify himself, which he didn't need to because he was already at a prema stage. He performed devotional service throughout his life, from childhood throughout his life, and then he thought of retiring. So he handed over the kingdom to his son and retired to Badrikashram. He was there, he was absorbed in Krishna's lotus feet, and he was absorbed throughout his life as well, being a pure devotee. But then when he was retired, he was doing devotional service and practicing those austerities. So one day he saw a beautiful plane coming down, and Lord associates come to see him. And it was Nanda and Sunanda who came out, and then they spoke to him. And what they spoke to him, that's what we are going to see in today's verse. So in yesterday's class, Prabhuji has very nicely introduced Nanda and Sunanda. So you all already have good background. Anyway, before that also, you all would already know who Nanda and Sunanda is. And he mentioned, it's just a recap from yesterday, that he mentioned that in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.15, there's a translation where we get an introduction of Nanda and Sunanda. And that verse translation says that Lord Brahma saw in the Vaikuntha planets the personality of Godhead, who is the Lord of the entire devotee community, the Lord of the goddess of fortune, the Lord of all sacrifices, and the Lord of the universe, and who is served by the foremost servitors like Nanda, Sunanda, Prabala, and Arhana, his immediate associates. So that shows that these two were his immediate associates. So then first thing they spoke to Dhruva Maharaj is they said, Bho Rajan, which means, oh dear king. That's an expression in Vedic time where Bho was good. It's not just like to a child we say, Bho, it's not that Bho, it's Bho Rajan in a very respectful manner. We say as an expression of greeting out of respect. And you also say that it means, oh dear. Bho means, oh dear. So we don't address oh dear to a stranger. This shows that they already knew Dhruva Maharaj. They are not greeting a stranger with that expression. So this emphasizes the point that anyone going back to Godhead is already known to the Lord's associates. So this is why I said whoever is going back, they are going back to Godhead. They're not going to a new place for the first time. So when you go back to the Godhead, of course, if it's a home, going back home, then the home, everybody will know you. And then after greeting him, they said, Subhadram te, all good fortune unto you. This also gives an example of how Lord associates behave. So they greet and then offer good fortune. So they are like perfect gentlemen. Just like Srila Prabhupada says that we all need to become perfect gentlemen and gentle ladies in Krishna consciousness. So for that, proper training is required, which he links in the purport later on. So after greeting, after giving good fortune, then they say to Dhruva Maharaj that Vacham no vahita shrunu. Please attentively hear what we shall say. So why they are saying please attentively hear? Because Dhruva Maharaj, being a pure devotee, he was at a stage of prema, of course he will be attentively listening. So the reason here is the point to emphasize that what they are going to speak next is going to be eternal and it needs absolute attention. It's going to be very important. So we must pay more attention to what they are going to speak next. Let's see what they speak next. So Nanda and Sunanda, they spoke to Dhruva Maharaj that he was only 5 years old when he greatly satisfied the Lord with his austerities. So we tend to notice the external austerities. So whenever we know or hear about Dhruva Maharaj, we talk a lot about external austerities, that how he stopped eating and he was doing all sort of all practices of Ashtanga yogas. But what we miss to notice that Dhruva Maharaj's internal austerities, his complete absorption in Lord form, which we have seen in verse 4.8.77 from Srimad Bhagavatam, where it says that out of all those austerities, his main focus was absorbed in the Lord's form. So his austerity was always to remember Krishna and never forget him. That was his internal austerities. And he did austerities on the instruction of Narad Muni. So let's see the list of instructions from previous chapter, that what Dhruva Maharaj got as an instruction from his guru. So Narad Muni gave instructions to Dhruva Maharaj, which we can see in Srimad Bhagavatam 4.8.56 to 58, where he has mentioned, chant the Mula Mantra and mentally offer items that are unavailable. Control your mind and speech. Be satisfied with eating whatever is available in forest. Meditate on the Lord's transcendental activities in his various incarnations. So from all these instructions, we can understand that he was instructed to focus on internal austerities. And that's what he was doing. Nowhere it says that you need to stop eating, you need to stop breathing, you need to stop drinking. It's all about internal austerities of controlling your mind, controlling your speech, being satisfied with what you are eating, so controlling your senses, chanting the Mula Mantra, mentally offering items, meditating on the Lord. So we can understand that he was not interested in to stop eating, drinking, and bathing and all of that. He was interested to focus his mind on Lord and always chant the mantra of God. And to accomplish that focus, to accomplish that chanting, he stopped eating, drinking, and later on. So what yogi takes as Ashtanga yoga is that they interested in stopping eating, breathing, and all of these external austerities because they just want to get some powers. They are not interested in remembering Lord out of these external austerities. So that's the whole point, that at the age of 5, he did a lot of internal austerities of remembering Lord, which greatly satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is what Nanda and Sunanda at the time of his, they are reminding him that how greatly satisfied the Lord was with his internal austerity. Next, we say that even though we saw that externally it appeared that he did Ashtanga Yoga, but internally he did a process of Bhakti Yoga. So when Prabhupada said in the purport that what was possible for Dhruva is possible for anyone, so why did he say that? Does it mean that it is indicating towards Dhruva Maharaj's external austerities? One can misunderstand that we are getting encouragement to do Ashtanga Yoga here. But we cannot do Ashtanga Yoga in this day and age. We have to go to jungle, we have to stop eating for several years. It's not possible in this day and age. So let's see from this verse that what Prabhupada is explaining when he's saying that what was possible for Dhruva Maharaj is also possible for anyone. There's a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam 12.3.52. Anyone would like to recite this verse?
Yeah, again, try Mataji.
Okay.
Thank you. Krite yadhyayato vishnum tretayam yajato makaihi dvapare paricharyayam kalau tad hari kirtanat. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Vimali. So the translation of this verse is, whatever result was obtained in Satya Yuga by meditating on Vishnu, in Treta Yuga by performing sacrifices, and in Dwapar Yuga by serving the Lord's lotus feet can be obtained in Kali Yuga simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So from this verse, we can understand that in Satya Yuga, the recommended process was meditation on Lord Vishnu. And here the focus is not on yoga exercise that often go in today's age. So it's not about yoga exercise, it's on the meditation of the Lord Vishnu. So similarly for Dwapar Yuga, the recommendation method is worship of the deities of Lord Vishnu. For Treta Yuga, the method was the performance of yajna. As we can see in the Rig Veda, mentioned yajno vai Vishnu. So yajna is not different from Vishnu. So we can understand that from all the ages, recommended process is Bhakti Yoga. Because in Kali Yuga, it is not that Bhakti Yoga is the recommended process. It is one specific limb of Bhakti Yoga. That is chanting holy name that is recommended. Kalau tadhari kirtana. So Bhakti is the common recommended spiritual path for all age. But this specific method differs from age to age. So, according to the intellectual and physical capacity of people in different ages, they were given a particular limb of bhakti to practice as by means by which they can express their desire to love Krishna through their actions. So, in earlier age, when they had more capacity, they were told to do Ashtanga Yoga. So, for example, we see that when Dhruva Maharaj was doing Ashtanga Yoga, as he had more capacity in that yoga, but he was also chanting the mantra. It was Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, which is a limb of Bhakti Yoga to meditate on Vishnu. So this is the point Srila Prabhupada is bringing here, that what was possible for Dhruva Maharaj is also possible for anyone. That is to follow the practice of Bhakti Yoga and perfect your life and reach to the Prema level. So he also mentioned, he emphasizes the point and the purport that the point of training from the very early age as 5. So he says the leaders of Krishna consciousness movement should start educational institute in different parts of the world, ranging from starting at the age of 5 years. So point is to provide training to remember Krishna from the very early age, as remembering Krishna is real austerity. So the king of all principle that we can see in this verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 22 chapter and verse 13, the translation of that verse is that Krishna is the origin of Lord Vishnu. He should always be remembered and never forgotten at any time. All the rules and prohibitions mentioned in the Shastras should be the servants of these two principles. You can see that you should always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. That is the main principle of bhakti. So by systematic training, that was possible for Dhruva Maharaj to become a great devotee at the age of 5 can be possible for any other child if we give them a systematic training in Krishna consciousness, and they can also be very advanced in Krishna consciousness. So why children must be trained in Krishna consciousness? And that also from the age of 5. So, because we saw with the example of Dhruva Maharaj, that he perfected his life at the age of 5. And Prabhupada explained that any 5-year-old child can be trained, and within a very short time, his life will become successful by realization of Krishna consciousness and become devotees of the Lord. So when he's saying become devotees of the Lord, what does it mean to be a devotee? You can see from Bhagavad Gita's verse 18.65, the answer to that who is a devotee. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskaru mam evashyasi satyam te pratijana priyosi me. So always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, offer your homages unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my dear friend. Then next thing, we'll see why it is important that we must train children in either if a school is available or in a Krishna conscious environment. So in particularly, Prabhupada is talking about educational institutes and the purport. The one reason is identity management. So as an adult, we may be facing few situations when we go out and some people may criticize us for not drinking tea, for example, or coffee. Or sometimes people can say, oh, you're too picky eater because you are not eating onion and garlic. They don't understand the reason behind it. So as an adult, we sometimes judge the situation and we may sometimes reveal the whole reason why we are doing all this, or we may just choose not to speak. We may just choose to just say yes, very simple, divert the situation by just saying that for health conscious, I'm avoiding caffeine, so not drinking tea or coffee. Depending on the faith level of the people you are talking to or dealing with, how you feel comfortable to reveal to some people and not to some other people outside, especially at workplace, because some people can bully if you reveal too much about your personal life. There are lots of different varieties of personalities out there. So the whole point is that we have, as an adult, we can judge and we can understand who to respond in what way, and it's not going to shake our faith. And to some people who are faithless, we can judge that and we may not want to discuss more about the devotional life because they are faithless, or it's going to go into useless talk. So, but in that situation, we have to deal with identity management. So we are devotee, but we may not expose ourselves completely as devotees in external world, especially at workplace. Some may, some may not. And to some people we may, to some people we may not. So it gets very difficult. It gets very exhausting for the mind to carry on like that. So, and in many lectures, we may hear that people would be asking this is common question, that how can I be Krishna conscious at school? Kids have been asking these questions. that how can I be Krishna consciousness at work? So as adult, it is easy for us to deal with such peer pressure, but it must be quite difficult for a little child at the age of 5 years. It's very easy on their consciousness if they receive their initial years education in Krishna conscious environment without much difference for them to deal with, that our bhakti life is different, our external people are different. It's too much. I mean, they will deal with non-devotees. It's not, we can protect them completely. And they are also very good non-devotees out there, but they can be trained in a very protected environment. So to their tender mind, they don't get any bad impressions. So they don't need to go through that peer pressure to justify to others on why they are different. And some kids may just break down and want to become like the other kid. So that's too much for the kid to handle emotionally. And then child will learn different subjects at the same time, will be trained to be connected to Krishna. So Prabhupada advised to create schools to train children all over the world so they can get balanced education. So he also explained in verse 18.65 that the most confidential part of knowledge is that one should become a pure devotee of Krishna and always think of him and act for him. One should not become an official meditator. Life should be so molded that one will always have chance to think of Krishna. One should always act in such a way that all his daily activities are in connection with Krishna. He should arrange his life in such a way that throughout the 24 hours, he cannot but think of Krishna. So children can be trained on how to arrange their activities so they can think of Krishna. And that can be easily done if they are given an environment where everybody else they see is also practicing Krishna consciousness, or at least the adults, not necessarily the other children, but at least there's no opposing factor or not too much of contrast in what others are practicing and what they are practicing. And association has a huge impact on little children. We know that children can become like or they imitate whoever they associate with. So children are like blank slate. You can mold them as you like because they are eager to learn. And with association, one develops a particular type of habits, particular type of conditioning. So by having good educational institution, which Prabhupada is recommending here, it can provide children with good association. So even the modern scientists, they talk about little children, how their mind works. So their brain waves of young children are similar to those that are in hypnosis stage. So like very little children in deep hypnosis state. So they will basically repeat whatever they see around, whatever they talk, or whatever they hear people talking around. So it's very much that they want to pick up, and that builds up their consciousness. So by the time a person is grown up, between 16 and 20, then their brain are mostly into beta waves and they are not so influenceable. They can't be influenced so easily by a change. So that's why at the tender age of 5, they can absorb the most. And that's why if they are trained at that age when they can absorb the most to be Krishna consciousness, then that will stay with them throughout life. As it is said, young children's brains are like sponges, absorbing everything going on around them. So every little thing they soak in builds connection in their brain. So we are developing future of these children by training them very early at the age of 5 in the science of bhakti. And we'll see some of the quotes from Srila Prabhupada, that what he has spoken about children and their training. Anybody would like to read this?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Sorry. So take care of these children. If you can make one child Krishna conscious, it is a great service. Krishna will be very pleased. So many children will come. Srila Prabhupada lecture, New Brindavan, June 22, 1969.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Second one? Anyone else?
Uh,
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hi, Krishna.
If we are able to make a whole generation of our children into Krishna conscious creatures, that will be the glory of our movement and the glory of our country as well. But if we neglect somehow or other, and if we lose even one Vaishnava, that is a very great loss. Srila Prabhupada letter, June 20th, 1972. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. The third one?
I'll read, Mataji.
Thank you.
Please take care of your children and make them perfectly Krishna conscious. That is a very great service. If by your endeavor, 1 or 2 souls who come under your protection become liberated in this life, that is a great transcendental service to the Lord. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. There's one more where he talks about Gurukula. If anyone would like to speak.
Krishna Mataji, I'll read. Gurukula is our most important project. If the children are given a Krishna conscious education from early childhood, then there is a great hope for the future of the world. Srila Prabhupada letter, January 27, 1973. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Then one last verse, someone would, not verse, sorry, quote from Srila Prabhupada's letter, if somebody would like to read.
Mataji, I am reading it. If they are not spoiled by an artificial standard of sense gratification at an early age, children will turn out very nicely as sober citizens because they have learned the real meaning of life. If they are trained to accept that austerity is very enjoyable, then they will not be spoiled. So you organize everything in such a way that we can deliver these souls back to Krishna. This is our real work. Srila Prabhupada later, November 25, 1971. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So in all these quotes, we can see that how much Srila Prabhupada has emphasized on training young children, and that is a great service to Krishna. So he talked about training for children, but with children, the systematic training is also required for adults, which Srila Prabhupada has also established in ISKCON. So, because as an adult, we may have stronger conditioning than children, still we can get trained if we are provided systematic training. So it will be easy for a 5-year-old, of course, to advance quickly because they can absorb more and they have less conditioning. But as an adult also we need training so we can advance and develop from first stage or second stage or third stage, whatever stage we are at, to the 9th stage, which is the prema stage level of bhakti, which Dhruva Maharaj achieved at the age of 5. So we'll see if, in yesterday's class, you all have read the purpose, 7 purpose of ISKCON. The first one is to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large and to educate all people in the techniques of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values in life and to achieve real unity and peace in the world. So by this first purpose, Srila Prabhupada is establishing that we should have a systematic, we should propagate spiritual knowledge to a society at large. So to meet the first purpose, many preaching programs are facilitated. We can see preachers are systematically, they are propagating this spiritual knowledge. They're educating new people in the techniques of spiritual life who know nothing about bhakti. So they can rise above from a beginner level, which is faith, where they develop little bit of faith, and then they go to sadhu sangha. They like association of devotees, and then they start performance of devotional service, which is chanting 16 rounds, following 4 regulative principles, and doing devotional services. They start doing their bhajan. After that stage, at the stage of bhajan kriya or above, one also have an opportunity to advance further, and we also have educational training courses such as Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav, Bhakti Vedanta, workshop on Vaishnava etiquettes, Grihastha lives. There could be many different courses that one can attend to advance further, to grasp the knowledge and get trained properly in the process of bhakti. So in summary, in this verse, we can see the importance of training in Krishna consciousness from a very early age. As Dhruva Maharaj got trained by the instruction of his mother and Narad Muni at a very early age. And we can see the result that when he was leaving to go back home, his mother was also going behind him, because she trained Dhruva Maharaj by giving the first instruction to go and worship Lord, go and ask Lord for it. So she connected her son to Lord, and for that she was also benefited. So similarly, we should encourage little kids to have good impressions about Krishna consciousness in whatever ways we can. It doesn't have to be our own children. Any children we see anywhere, we should inspire them in the path of bhakti, because they are very naive. They have a blank slate. They can take all good impressions. So we must participate in training children and to also preach adults in the techniques of spiritual life, so that others can also be benefited and brought into the path of bhakti. And as the essence of that verse was that anyone could be trained. So training is very important. And as Srila Prabhupada said, that any 5-year-old child can be trained, and within a very short time, his life will become successful by realization of Krishna consciousness. So we must get trained and also at the same time train others from our capacity to the capacity that we have. And also train to always remember Krishna and never forget him, because that is the king of all principle. So thank you, everyone. If anyone has got any comments or questions, please let me know.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandot Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Yeah, you have clearly from top to bottom explained the subject matter so nicely. I don't find any point to be added. We already had discussed everything word by word. So it's all a very good lesson for all of us to understand the impact of Krishna consciousness right from the beginning of our childhood to the adult stage and later on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji. I especially like that point where you said that it's not that there's a different process for every age. The Bhakti Yoga is the standard process for all the ages. That's very, very nice point you made. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, I got that point from Chaitanya Chan Prabhu's
Very nice. Yes.
article.
Very good.
He has mentioned.
Mhm.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. Yeah, this question of training young children. On one of the visit of His Holiness Bhakti Krishna Das Goswami Maharaj, he was asked this question by one Grasta couple. He said, "How do we bring up our children in Krishna consciousness?" And he gave a very good answer. He said, first, at home, you had to set, you had to be very exemplary, because the kids pick up things which you are doing, and like somebody cannot be watching TV and then you ask the kids to read Krishna conscious books or something like that. So he said, first we had to set a good example everywhere, at home, outside. Second, he said, you got to spend quality time with your kids, at least 1 hour reading Krishna books or activities which are pleasant to Krishna. So they know that their parents are very much worried about them and they are spending time with them. And third, he said, just engage them in some Krishna conscious activity, taking out picnic or Krishna Katha or Krishna plays or Kirtan. So when they are immersed in these activities, they have this chance of being diverted to other karmic activities. So he said these are the 3 pillars. So I'm just sharing this because I had this thing very nicely from Maharaj. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji, for
Krishna.
sharing
Hare
that.
Krishna Mataji. Just adding to Prabhuji's comment, that's why the proverb says charity begins at home. So whatever you do at home, the little children just follow. So if we follow the right, take the right decision and right path, automatically children will follow us. That is the basic of our systems. So the best thing, charity begins at home. We need to behave ourselves in the right way. Children will automatically follow. Thank you so much.
I just had one
Thank
more
you,
point to
Prabhuji.
add, just one more point to add on that theme, Mataji, that it's not what we say and do, but also how we behave with them. So sometimes
Yes.
we can be very strict and very harsh on children because we are so absorbed in our Krishna conscious activities. But for them, they don't know Krishna directly. They know parents. For them, parents are like godlike figures. And if we don't treat them with love and affection, then they're not very much likely to, believe that Krishna is a very, very loving God. So we have to also be very kind and loving to the children. That was a point I read in a psychology book, but I connected it to our Krishna consciousness and I felt that this was very relevant for us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mataji. Very inspiring points.
Okay, you still got 3 minutes. Anybody have any comment, question, realization to share? Okay, if not, we'll close the class here. Thank you very much, Grace Ananglata Mataji, for coming forward, giving such a nice insight in this verse. Thank you very much. Grace Ananglata Mataji ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai,
Srila Prabhupada.
Bhagavatam ji, God Pamani, Hari Hari Bol.
Hari
Pancha
Bol.
Kalpadrubhisha, Vasanavascha, Ramyo, Vishnu.
Vishnu